This may seem obvious, but first impressions matter. And if your first call with a prospect feels like a checklist, you're wasting a huge opportunity. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use Perspective AI to get the formalities out of the way ahead of time so that instead of spending the first 15 minutes on basic qualification questions, you can focus on what really matters: building a connection with your prospects and understanding their needs. But before we jump into the demo, I want to talk briefly about the discovery call itself, because all too often these calls start off with a rigid list of questions like, what's your budget, what's your timeline, who's involved in the buying decision, and so on. Now, it's not to say that these aren't important, but they don't lead to a quality conversation, and they certainly don't help you stand out from all the other salespeople that are asking the same things. By the time a prospect talks to you, they've probably answered these questions a dozen times. So if you can skip that part and get straight to a meaningful conversation, you'll have a much better chance of building trust and learning something valuable that can help you to differentiate yourself. So what are the key things that make for a really great discovery call? First and foremost is you've got to make the conversation about them and not you. One really easy way to do this is by starting the conversation off with what you already know about them. If your prospects have answered key qualification questions ahead of time, use those to demonstrate that you've done your homework. Being able to say things like, I saw that you're currently using X in order to solve for Y. Can you tell me more about that? Is going to lead to a much better conversation than, what solution are you currently using to solve for X? Okay, second, always remember that this is a conversation, it's not an interrogation. Instead of jumping from question to question, take the time to dig deeper into what your prospects actually care about. If they mention a challenge, repeat it back to them and then ask about the impact. For example, that could look something like, you just mentioned that response times are like a big issue for you. Can you tell me more about how that's affecting your team? And third, your goal is to uncover the stakes, not just the problem, because people take action when they understand the cost of inaction. Your prospects are telling you all about their problems. Your job is to figure out what happens if those problems don't get solved. So saying things like, you just said that this is slowing things down for you. Does that mean a longer sales cycle, lost deals, or something else? That sends the message that what you care about is solving their problems and not just closing a deal. So now that that's out of the way, let's jump into how you can use Perspective AI to prep for your discovery calls and win more deals. Now, to start things off, you'll need to create a Perspective AI account, which you can do at getperspective.ai/signup. Once you're in, you're going to want to create a new conversation guide. You can do this from scratch, but in this demo, we're going to use the call prep template because this template is built to support standard sales qualification frameworks like BANT and MEDDIC. Next, we're just going to give Perspective a little bit of information about our company and our prospects. The first question it's asking me is, what's my company? So today, my company is Cool CRM. Now it's asking me, who are the prospects that Perspective will actually be having a conversation with? Is it new potential customers, existing customers, or some other specific group? In this case, we're going to say brand new sales leads. Now it's asking me, what are the specific goals that I have for this conversation? Things like understanding the prospect challenges, learning about their company background, identifying what attracted them to Cool CRM. I'm just going to keep it general and tell Perspective all of the above. Now it's asking if I have any preferences or guidelines for how this conversation should flow. Should it be casual or professional? Or are there any specific do's or don'ts that it should keep in mind? And I'm just going to tell it casual and professional. Last question that it's going to ask me is whether or not I have any specific mandatory questions that need to be asked. And in this case, I'm going to say no. Now, in under a minute, I just created a conversation guide, and this guide is used by Perspective's LLM to guide the conversation with my prospects and to get me, or you, the insights that you really need in order to make a great first impression. Once you've created the guide, you want to preview the conversation to get an idea of what it's going to be like for your prospects. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire conversation preview in this video, but I do want to just show you very briefly what this looks like. You can see here that the first thing that Perspective is going to ask my prospects is, tell me a little bit about your company, its size, its name, the industry that it's in. So I'm going to tell it as though I were a prospect. I work at a company called Rad Marketing. Now, notice that perspective immediately starts to adapt to the conversation. I told it I work at Rad Marketing. So it's asking me a little bit about the size of my company and the specific industry that I'm in. And it gives a couple of examples like digital marketing, advertising, or something else, which it was able to understand just simply by the name of what my company is. I'll tell it, we're a marketing automation platform. We've got 150 employees and 1,000 customers. Now it's digging into my challenges and why I might be looking for a tool like Cool CRM. Now again, I'm not going to go through the entire conversation preview on this video because perspective is infinitely adaptable, and what you see here isn't going to be the same as what it comes up with for your company. Now, if at any point I come across a question that perspective asks, or even the way that it asks a given question, I can make changes to the conversation guide simply by coming back over here and telling it what I want to change. One example could be something like, I want it to be a bit more personable in the conversations. You can see that it's generating a new conversation guide for me, and once it's done, I'll be able to take the preview again and continue that cycle as many times as I need until I like the output. Once you're happy with the experience, you're ready to share the link with your prospects. You can simply copy the link and send it to them via email, or you can put their emails directly into Perspective and we'll email them directly on your behalf. And by the way, now that this is set up, that same link can be used with all prospects going forward. I don't need to recreate this every time I have a new prospect that wants to speak with sales. Now with that out of the way, let's dive into what a completed conversation looks like and how you can leverage those to have better discovery calls. As completed conversations come in, this is what I'll see. Perspective generates a summary of key insights from each completed conversation, and I can dig into any one of these and read the entire thing line by line, which I'd recommend doing if you want to understand your prospects and make a great first impression. But what makes Perspective so powerful is the ability to transform these conversations into actionable outputs that can help me wow my customers and leave a lasting impression. For example, I can tell Perspective things like, summarize this conversation using the BANT framework. I'd also like to know, what are the key selling points I should mention and why? Lastly, I'd like Perspective to generate an agenda for our call on Monday. And that's how you can use Perspective AI to have better discovery calls and win more deals. Thanks for watching.